Hi there, tech enthusiasts. Welcome back to our Ubuntu installation adventure. So if you missed the previous part, just hit the rewind button. We're inside the installation process now. So this is what you should see once you start the installation. So now it's time to pick up where we left off. First, you can select the language. So if you want anything other than English, you can select that. However, I suggest that you pick English because whenever you're doing troubleshooting, when you find some problem, usually you have documentation on the internet in English, whereas in other languages there is just less documentation. So if you're a good level English speaker, it is a good idea to choose English, but if you're otherwise you can pick another language if you're more comfortable with that. But you might have less documentation or help online on that. So what you can do is install an update. Now this is completely optional. You can update after installing. So we're gonna go with that, continue without updating, and then update later on. Now what we have to do is select our keyboard layout. I have a US English keyboard. This really depends on what kind of keyboard you have. So you can press enter and then select the keyboard you have, depending on the country you're in or the type of keyboard you have. Now these keyboards have variants as well. So it really depends on what you have. I have a US International keyboard, but if you are a non-English person, you might have extra keys, you might have a completely different layout. So it really depends on your keyboard. There's an option to identify keyboards. Then it will do the process for you and you don't have to manually search for it if you're not quite sure. So I'm gonna click done because, well, we already select the keyboards. And otherwise select your country and region and pick the keyboard that works for you. If you don't select the right one, you can change it later on, but then some keys might be off place. So click done, and then it asks us what we want to install. So we can install either Ubuntu server full package. It says like everything. You can do a minimal install, so it doesn't come with all the software and it's faster, but then doesn't include everything. And if necessary, you can add drivers. Now that might be necessary. For example, some drivers might not work. So for example, your Wi-Fi card or something else important might not work without these third-party drivers. So if you have some devices that has third-party drivers, it's a good option to enable it so that you won't start a server and then don't have any internet, for example, don't have any Wi-Fi or maybe something else you need. So in general, it's a good idea. I'm going to select it and press tab and done, press enter. Okay, now we're going to configure the network. If you're connected via the Ethernet, so if you have a cable inside your box, then it will work right away. So it should look like this and basically done. If you're using Wi-Fi, don't worry, you can set it up later. So for now in the installation, I recommend that you have a cable plugged in because everything will be a bit more smoother to do that. So you'll see here I already have an address. Don't have that, you can set that. If you press enter, you can see also the interfaces. You can change. If you don't have automatic IP addresses, you can change it here to manual and type your own settings. If you select manual, you can select your own subnet, address, gateway, all your network configuration. However, in my case, I have the automatic system, DHCP. So everything will be done automatically. We're gonna go click done. Done. And you'll see it's testing to download the Ubuntu files. So, and this is also an automatic check if your network is correctly configured. If you see this output, the mirror patient or the test passed that you can see up there, and seeing this output, it means that your network connection is working and we can now continue the installation. So click done. I recommend that you have a separate computer for this and don't do any partitioning, because if partitioning goes wrong, if there's already a Windows on there, Linux or some other system, you can lose your files, or maybe the computer doesn't start anymore. It can be a mess. So if you have a dedicated computer, that's the most easiest, and given the prices of computers these days, I just recommend going with a separate computer that doesn't have anything installed or just something you want to erase, so that you can go with use entire disk. If you want, you can give extra security to your disk by doing encryption. That means the disk itself is scrambled, so nobody who, for example, steals your computer can then access your data. They would need a passphrase to access it. You'll see if you click select it, it lets you select a passphrase. But keep in mind there is no forget option. So if you would forget the passphrase, you can then no longer access your disk yourself. So if you go that route, it will be more secure in case of theft of the hardware, in case of theft of the device. Nobody would be able to read any data on your disk, on your computer, unless they have the passphrase, including yourself. So that's a very good option if you want more security, but then make sure you never forget that password. So for this example, I'm just gonna go with disabled. Click done, and then click done again. Click continue, enter. Now it will ask you some information. So then type your information, which will be different, of course, for you. You can pick anything you want, your personal name, account name, server name, and some passwords. So fill in whatever you want. It's just your personal device information, your name, your username, and your passwords. You can update or upgrade this to Ubuntu Pro. You'll have more security updates, which is useful, but for now I'm gonna skip that. Now you get this question: do you want to install OpenSSH server? So this allows you to remotely log in into your file sharing server from whatever computer in the network. So that can be your Linux computer, it can be a Windows computer, it can be a Mac computer, and so on, and remotely control the computer. So this is very useful, especially if you have a server without a screen, or have your computer doesn't have a screen, your computer, then you can remotely log in. And even if that's not the case, it's just very simple to log into your server from your home computer and then do some quick changes if you need to. So it's a very useful feature. However, keep in mind that there is a security aspect too. So of course, if you open the server, it also is a potential for hackers or attackers to attack if they're on the same network. So for now, we're gonna just click done. Click done again. Now there's some more questions here. So some common server packages that you can install. So you see all kind of apps here, like open source Kanban, WECon. There's Docker for running containers, all kind of apps that you can install onto your server if you want to. So I'm just gonna leave the default, but you can install different things. For example, Nextcloud to run your own cloud, your own file sharing cloud. Now, just to keep things simple, I'm gonna click done and then show you whatever you want to install or how to install software later on. So now it is installing, and you just have to wait for this installation to complete. So you can grab a coffee or do something else. So once it's done, you'll see this screen where you have the option to reboot. So you'll see there's no longer any screen output, and you have the option to reboot now. So if you press enter, it will restart your computer and hopefully start in the Ubuntu server operating system.